Hey, my little guinea pigs. Today I wanted to talk about the Beyerdynamic DT990 Premium versus DT990 Pro. So we can see here on headphones.com, Resolve posted a bunch of measurements of the Beyerdynamic DT990 Premium. So this is the 600 ohm, 250 ohm, 32 ohm. These are all the DT990 Premium. And then the DT990 Pro 250 ohm, which is what I recommend. So when we flip through all of these, we can see the dotted line here that they want the headphone to follow. Let's go to the pros, my dudes. Let's go down to the pros. So if we look at this original image, yeah, boys. So if we look at this, this is the DT990 Pro 250 ohm that I recommend, and this is the Harman target. So the Harman target is known for being veiled in the treble, which means it rolls off the treble, and it's known for sucking out the mid bass around 200 hertz. So if we look at the DT990 Pro 250 ohm, I we can look at this and say, wow, isn't it way too bright? This target says it's supposed to be way down here. Isn't this way too bright in the highs? I would say just ignore that for now and notice how smooth the treble is. Notice how freaking smooth it is. Sure, there's some peaks and cuts, but just notice how smooth the measurement actually is. You know what I'm trying to say, my dudes? Trying to pick a color. Purple. Okay, we got yellow. Okay, so yeah, we got one or two spikes, but when we switch between all these different measurements. So here's the DT990 Premium 600 ohm. And we can see that it's got this huge cut right here. It's got this huge peak right here. Okay, so a huge 5.5K peak, a huge 4.5K cut. Okay, that's very jarring. That's very bad, And when we go to the Premium 250 ohm, we can see it has yet again a huge 5.5K peak, and it's not very smooth in the highs. And then we look at the 32 ohm, we can see it's very deteriorated in the highs. So, I've always told you guys to avoid the Premium edition because it just doesn't sound as good in the highs. It just sounds funkier, less musical, less smooth, less transparent, and we can see the huge peaks and cuts and stuff. Okay, it's very jarring, very chewed up. And when we go to the 250 ohm pros, this 4K cut right here, that's from the pads, and it comes and goes as the pads wear down. That 4K cut will actually come and go. And there's a 6K peak on fresh pads. But I mainly want you to look at just how smooth this treble is in the highs. Okay, so I've always said the DT990 Pro 250 ohm has the smoothest treble, the most transparent sound, and yeah, that 4K cut comes and goes from the pad wear. But again, when we switch between the Premium, now when we look at the Premium 600 ohm, it seems to have smooth treble as well, except this 4K cut and this peak is a lot more extreme on the 600 ohm Premium versus the 250 ohm Pros. Okay, that 4K cut is not nearly as extreme, and that 6K peak is not nearly as extreme. Okay, so the Pro has the most transparent highs. And again, I want you to trace over this, just draw over this thing, and you'll see that besides this one dip right here, which is from the pads, this thing is completely and utterly smooth from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Besides this one deviation here, and maybe slight deviations in the highs, this thing is and again, this 4K cut is pad wear. This headphone is so slick, so sweet, so transparent throughout the entire response. And then you could argue, well, it's so bright. It's so bright here. Well, if you really wanted to roll that off with EQ, if you like the Harman Target, a lot of people don't like the Harman Target. So, if we go to the earphones again, we could see that I'm recommending the Hype 2, the DT990 Pro 250 ohm, the EM6Ls. Okay. It is smooth and transparent as crap, the DT990s. And we could see that here too, okay? We can see just how smooth and transparent it is, okay? Now we can see over here they're talking about the Tigers, the Beyerdynamic DT. Well, they're not even DT, they're Tiger 300R. And when we look at the measurements, he's using EQ. So he's using this huge amount of EQ to EQ it to Harman. And Harman is shit. We've already discussed that. But if we look at the frequencies in the highs, it's got this huge 5.5K peak. Let's bring in the Tigers 300R and change the color. So the Tigers here in yellow, that he's like, oh, this is so good, the Tigers. We can see that huge 5.5K peak right here on the Tigers. Okay, and we can see these deteriorations, these cuts and these peaks on the Tigers. And if we go back over here and we look at the Tigers over here, we can see that too. So we can see the peak, the 5.5K peak, the cut, peak, cut, peak, we get cut. So we can see the peaks and the cuts and all that crap. And then when we go to his EQ, he's like, oh, it's so much better. Oh my God. Because he rolled off all the highs and stuff. We can still see those peaks and cuts, those peaks and cuts, those peaks and cuts, that deterioration, huge amount of holes in the treble. And, we can see that over here. So even, without EQ, that deterioration is still going to be there with those huge peaks and cuts and holes, we see over here. So it's the same deterioration, except they rolled it off the highs with EQ. Okay, those peaks and cuts. So, look what they did to it. They really cut out that peak, that 5.5K peak. They did a cut right there. But so we could see, again, let's look at the raw. And then we can compare it to. We can remove adjustments. So it's kind of a similar format that we got going here. So we can compare the two. So we could see, some people like herder. So we can see these are exactly the same, these measurements. It's got the dip right there, the dip right there, the peak right here, the peak right here, the dip right here. I mean, these are the same exact goddamn measurements you see here. Peak right here, peak right here, peak right here, peak right here, huge cut right here, huge cut right here. So we can see that, the DT990s are just a smoother, cleaner version of this. We can flatten this out and really see that. you know, that, when we trace over the two, that huge peak is not on the DT990s. This jagged deterioration is not on the 990s. Smoother on the 990s. So, the main point of this is the Beyerdynamic DT990s are amazingly smooth, especially the Pro 250 ohm. You don't want to get the premiums because they measure worse, my dudes. And we can go over here and see that, like, this guy's talking about my videos on the DT990s, and he's showing this really chewed up, terrible measurement that we can pull that game. We can bring in the DT990s with fresh ear pads. Okay, and then we can unflatten this, and we can play that same game of the DT990s in blue here. Oh, look how jagged they are. And then we can look back over here and look at this measurement. We can play this this game. Oh, look how jagged it is. With fresh ear pads. And if we look here, it's got the same jaggies in the same spot. So, what is it? This peak. Wait. Okay. So, is that 6K peak? 6K peak. This 8K peak. 8K peak. So we can see all the peaks in the same spots. So, I think that's in the right spot. Yeah, 3K. So, those peaks go away with pad wear, my dudes. They smooth out. So, and get rid of the tigers. So we can see those peaks completely go away that they're bitching about. The peaks completely go away. They smooth out. So we've got these brain dead idiots just sitting here showing bullshit crap. But it's funny because what motivates me a lot of times to make these videos and to talk about this stuff is it all comes down to who can correctly read and decipher and analyze these graphs. And it's very easy to bullshit people by like showing fresh pad versus worn ear pads or stuff like that. At the end of the day, the Beyerdynamic DT990 Pro 250 ohm have the smoothest treble of any headphone. We can bring in like the HD 650s that some people glamorize, trolls, troll people, and even the Harman target's not that dark. I don't even have that Harman target here because Harman target is shit, and we don't condone the Harman target that rolls off all the highs. Yeah. Swedish, gibbity dibbity do. So, people who say, oh, the DT990s are too bright, will say, oh, get the HD 650s, but then they're too dark. The Harman target's like in between the two, So, maybe we find the HD 650s. Butter, 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 butter. Butter, butter, butter. This guy bullshits the graph so much. Everywhere. This form. 650. Gotta find the official 650. Find. How am I gonna? I'm kind of killing time here, aren't I? So remember, MERM HD 650 search. Okay. Okay, we got this. We got some shit from him. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. Mass drop 5.8x just for shits and giggles. So we can see, so, you know, this is 5.8x Jubilee. We can see, you know, it's way darker than the Harman target. It's got this huge cut right here. That's terrible. It's true. But HD 600's a review. So we can see just how deteriorated and jagged the HD 600s are. And the 650s, it's just really jagged and deteriorated in the highs. It doesn't have any bass. Oh no, it's got 200 hertz mud. You know, it's nasty. Oh, look at all that bass distortion. Jesus Christ. So I mean, that's not flat. You know, if we look at it on my website, you know, we flatten it. You know, that's not flat. You know, 600s. Yeah, that's not flat. We can see the deterioration. So you could look at it like this, like, oh, you know, DT990s with fresh ear pads versus HD 600s. And you could be like, oh, look, do you want veiled, dark, deteriorated treble, or do you want bright, piercing, fatiguing treble? You know, that's, you know, HD 600s versus DT 990s. Do you want, you know, it's supposed to be in the middle here, okay? So do you want overly dark, veiled, or overly bright, piercing? That all changes once the pads wear in. And then, you know, now the DT990s with worn ear pads are bright and clear and musical and sparkly versus veiled and deteriorated treble that's also very shouty. If we look at the HD 600s in this region, you know, there's a ton of energy in this region. The presence region is very shouty on the HD 600s because the treble is gone and the scoop here. So there's a lot of energy right here. Okay, since the DT990s don't do that, they don't peak out anywhere, it kind of looks like that. The DT990s don't have any shout because they're smooth. They don't have all this energy in this one little region right here. Okay, so we can adjust the target here. And then we can flatten the target here, and we can see what I'm talking about, where this V-shaped target and we flatten it out right here. We can see the DT990s are super flat. Okay, on this V-shaped target, they don't have this, 3.5K shout, this shout right here, and this huge treble veil, and you got more bass on the DT990s. My little hams, one little buttercups. So I think that's it for this video. I just got a little bit carried away. My little sugar plums, but we can bring in the 650s again as well. So we can say, oh yeah, they're essentially the same thing, the 650s and the 600s. But I've kind of already talked about this before. The 600s are grainy in the treble, while the 650s are smooth in the treble. Darker, smoother 650, grainier, peakier treble on the 600s. So the 650s get rid of that treble grain, those spikes, because it dampens those treble spikes, that grain. These are both very dark and veiled, but the 600s sound a little bit brighter, a little bit grainier, because of these little peaks that shoot out from the depths of darkness. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. I hope you guys understand this, that the DT990s have more bass, more treble clarity, and once the pads wear in, they're better than the Sennheisers. I'll see you guys later.